Welcome back to the Observatory Podcast. Here we are again in the bridge of the ship, the Montserrat ship. And we have with us one of the guests here on the ship with us. And Ray's been having some conversations with her. This is Pallavi
Kanoi, who's an entrepreneur from India. And
Yes.
so she's here with her husband and really dear friends. The four of them have also been on this cruise here in the Galapagos Islands. You've actually been traveling, you said, for like 17 days.
Right. We were in Peru before this.
And so then this is the last part. You're getting ready to go home.
Go back home, yes.
And when I asked her, I said, "Oh, are you excited to get back home?" She said, "Oh, yes, because you have a 2-year-old son."
Right.
And then also a growing business because you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, I want to talk to you and find out what it is." And so we started chatting, and I'm always curious when, meeting entrepreneurs, as everyone that listens and follows us knows, we're both a big fan of entrepreneurs, but just how you balance life, growing, a growing business, you're young, a young family, a young child, your husband's also an entrepreneur. And so we thought, oh, let's chat with you, not only about what you feel your experience here has been in the islands, but just how you balance all of that as being with as an entrepreneur.
Right. So, you know how Indian families work? We have a very large ecosystem in terms of in-laws, and then my husband, we live in a joint family. So I have like uncle-in-laws and, first cousins. All of us live in a very large ecosystem. So, I mean, of course, it comes with a lot of social obligations. But I think the support system is really strong, wherein I could take off for 17 days and know that my in-laws will take care of my 2-year-old son. So I think that really helps in balancing, I think, all your ambitions and your responsibilities.
Yeah, that's lovely.
But I mean, apart from that, I think it's just like my mind has always been very organized. I think like you've trained it that way over time. So I time block a lot where I'm like, okay, this is my personal fitness time and this is time with Kabir, who's my son. And nothing else fits into that time, then it's just about him and me and our bonding. And then I think about 6-7 hours a day has to be work. Because with Ocha, we started a while ago, but just over the last 2 years is when, I decided I wanted to take it to the next level and scale up and grow. So we're in that phase right now where we're spending money on marketing and, distribution.
Right. And we love your company. Scott's a big fan of like a lot of natural products, and looking at your company, it's a very natural teas, valerian root and dandelion and all of this that helps manage everything from stress to then liver health, and it's a very natural way to take care of your body.
Right. So.
And you said the name of the company is what again? Ocha.
Ocha.
What does that name come from?
Cha actually means tea.
Tea. Yeah, I've heard that before.
Right. And I think O was just there was this thing in India that herbal teas can't taste good.
Mm-hmm.
So when I made a couple of my blends and I just shared it with friends and family, they literally went, "Oh," after sipping on it.
Like, "Oh, this is nice."
This is nice. Yeah.
A surprise.
Right, exactly. And so literally like just that thought, I said, this is a nice brand name, Ocha.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So from the culture of tea being very common as a drink where you're from, then that's where the business kind of came from, but you wanted to incorporate the herbal teas into it more.
So, since I was a kid, my grandma was very like natural in her like approach towards wellness and just being very holistic. So as kids, we always used to have these Ayurvedic concoctions when we felt sick, or like to boost immunity. So I think it was just a way of life. And when I moved to Calcutta, which is the center for tea, I started discovering more about herbs, spices, and their healing properties. And it just felt interesting to see how much you can do with it, how much you can make these really interesting combinations and concoctions that really do help you feel better. And I think like just because of the way I've grown up, I've always been very holistic in like even today for skincare or hair care, I prefer using natural things like hibiscus flower or yogurt, rather than using like a artificial conditioner. So just that thought process then like got me exploring into herbs and different sorts of just everything that was available in India in terms of flowers, in terms of spices, in terms of fruits. And yeah, I mean, the challenge was that how do you make these things taste good? Because a lot of things that are good for your health are actually very bitter tasting, or very sour. So then that's when like I went and did a little bit of a blending course. And yeah, I mean, I just felt like it's interesting. More and more of the world is moving away from allopathy medicine and moving towards like alternative medicine. So I just natural, so.
And so all of the blends are the ones that you've come up with, the ones that you've tested and tried and that you love.
I have a Ayurvedic practitioner as a consultant, so I keep going back to him and like checking that do these two herbs work together? Does it work? Like, there are certain quantities that you can mix things in, or just but it's nice to have a professional on board to say that, okay, what you're doing makes sense.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, so
it's
that's
beautiful.
how we do it.
Now, as you kind of embarked on this, how do you find that what you're doing as a business and your life, even the way you were raised, that it all continued to kind of aligns and stays in harmony for you as a person?
Yeah, so as a person, I'm a maximalist. I love beautiful looking things. I love creating these aesthetics. I host a lot. So one of the things that I really focused on Ocha was to make sure that the packaging is really beautiful. And we made it a gifting first company to start with.
Oh, I like that idea.
Yeah,
explain kind of what that is if someone doesn't know it.
So in India, like corporate gifting is a very big thing. Throughout the year, we have so many festivals because it's such a diverse country. So, starting from the north, there's Lahori, and then there's Diwali, and then even Christmas is a big thing in India now, we all do Secret Santa with our friends. So because of that, throughout the year, there are festivals and weddings where people gift. So we wanted to see how tea and, herbs could be a part of that gifting culture. So we actually didn't design boxes first. Like, we didn't design store boxes first. We designed gift boxes as a brand initially.
Oh, that's great.
And we keep building on that. Every year we come up with a new collection. So I think that sort of like, that maximalism and aesthetic is something that I take from my personal life and put it into the brand. And, like I said, the other thing, I love natural hacks. So if I am able to say that, hey, like, you have a hangover, you take some dandelion tea and sip on it and you'll feel better, versus like a medicine, like a vitamin C pill, that most people have for hangover in India.
Yeah, or they'll take ibuprofen or something.
Right. So I'm like, try this, I think it might help you more.
Or just more beer.
That's true, some do that.
Right. So so just things like that. And I think it's kind of merging, right? Like now, because I do yoga, I went back to work and I was like, hey, let me develop a yoga tea, which kind of helps you focus
for mindfulness,
just before you're getting into your practice. Maybe you can sip on this tea and like it helps you calm down. And then like a lot of things that I develop at work through research, or like seeing what other companies are doing, or what is the demand in the market, I kind of try and incorporate it back into my life.
Yeah, because I saw that you have one for like stress management.
Right.
And that's, I mean, there probably isn't any job that doesn't come with a level of stress.
Everything.
Yeah, or life.
Yeah, life.
So I love that. So let's talk about, so that's perfect, and we'll put in the show notes all the links to your social media so they can become, and you told me that you're now you're offered on Amazon in the US.
Right.
Starting just this month.
Yes. So we listed on Amazon.com, and we actually listed with all of these teas, the bone health, the stress management, because we saw that many people in the US were also looking for natural ways to kind of just deal with life.
Right.
We're also selling pure herbs, so say nettle leaves or hibiscus petals. So we're just trying to get people to be able to use these herbs, because it's hard to source these things, right? Like you can't find nettle leaves growing on the street. So we're letting people use this and come up with their own concoctions. Like just a simple nettle leaf can be used as a tea. You can use it as a rub for like your meats. You can use it just mix it with your oil and use it for your hair. So there's just one leaf that can do so much in your whole life. So we want people to discover that natural use, and which is why we thought that the US was a very good market, because I think the whole DIY culture in the US is growing.
Yeah, it's very popular.
So we've just launched and we're excited to see where it takes us.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It is. Now, I came back on board. You guys were having a conversation.
Yes, because we both skipped snorkeling this
They
morning.
skipped snorkeling. I went snorkeled, came back and got on board, and they were having a conversation. And when we got back to the room, Ray said, "You'll never believe this. She was in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, and that's a program that Ray had been involved with years back. And so we didn't even know that they had that in India. So that's
and you went through it in India. Where did you go?
So there's this institute called IIM Bangalore, Indian Institute of Management. So Goldman Sachs runs it in association with them, and it's a 3-month program. So you go onto campus, you do 1 week of class on campus, and then there are a bunch of online classes. And then you submit like a business presentation.
Yeah, so it's very similar. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. So I was really surprised. I was so excited when you said that, because I asked where you went to school, and you said you had you'd received your master's at Duke.
Duke, yes.
In the States.
Right.
And then you'd done the Goldman Sachs program, which is just, I'm so excited. Yeah. It's just like family to me.
You're passionate about
to
that.
meet that, because just so passionate, and just passionate about all the amazing things that women are doing today as young entrepreneurs. It's just, it feels, men and women, but I'm really very supportive of all of them. But I have a soft spot in my heart for all the female entrepreneurs.
You know, India is very different, right? Like women traditionally never used to work.
Right.
I think I come from a little bit of privilege where my parents really encouraged me to work. And so when I went into this program, I met first generation entrepreneurs and first generation wealth creators, really. And it was just so inspiring to see what these women were able to create, and how the program kind of structured that for them and said that, okay, you've built it till here, now here's a structure that can take it from here to here.
Right.
I really, was very inspiring for me, more than the learnings in the program. Just meeting these women and seeing what they're doing with their lives was a larger life lesson.
You're all kind of lifting each other up, because
Absolutely.
you're all wanting to be successful.
Right.
But as you see each other in what you're doing, it's inspiring for
it's
each
inspiring.
of you. Yeah.
I mean, and networking, right? Like I met Ray, and she was so forthcoming. She was like, I can introduce you to this person, and like a distributor.
All of a sudden I have a list.
And it's just this, right? Like just supporting each other. I think the program focuses a lot on that.
Yeah, they really do.
I get to observe this all the time. I watch Ray lift other people and help other people, especially in business and entrepreneurs, because she does it so willingly and just unselfishly, because she wants everyone to be successful.
Well, and
She does it.
having my own career, I watched a lot of friends, and I watched my nieces and nephews, and I just see younger people today doing a much better job at balancing life. They very much carve out time for children and for families, and I really entered the workplace where that was a much harder balance. And I didn't get married until just before my 54th birthday. So my whole career was my life, and I just see younger women having it differently, and I'm so excited that they do get to have it differently, and the balance. So I love that when I meet someone like you that has a 2-year-old and a thriving business, and you and your husband are traveling. I'm like, she has it all.
But honestly, it's because of people like you. Like, you guys have set it up for us very well.
Hopefully we laid some groundwork.
I mean, I'm always very grateful to my mother and my mother-in-law, because of them, I can be here and I can be at work for 6 hours a day,
right,
and not have to worry about the nitty-gritties of just running a home.
Yeah, that is nice.
I think one of the things that I'm really feeling inspired about that you're talking about is the closeness of your family and the way you've all supported each other, because we as in our culture, it's kind of gotten away from taking care of the older people in the family. Sometimes they're not really as well taken care of as they could be. But I know in other cultures that's something that is a priority. Taking care of the elders, making sure that the elders have what they need if they're not working anymore. Health wise, all of those things Can you talk about that a little bit in your culture, and maybe even specifically as your family? Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think as like growing up, that respect for elders was something that was ingrained in us. You couldn't question something that your elders said, right? It was the word of law, and I think it was just,
even if they're not right sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes even if they're not right. I mean, as we're growing, I wouldn't like as a country that like now that we're growing older, I think we question it a lot more. We're moving towards the West, but still, right? Like you just believe that this is how you're supposed to live, and you're raised that way. That you're going to raise your children, and it's great if you have grandparents living in the same house when you're raising your children because they support you, and then as those grandparents age, you kind of help them out with their health. We had my husband's grandmother was living with us till she was 83. She passed away at 83, and it was an unsaid rule that we had to go spend 30 minutes with her every day because loneliness is such a big thing, right?
Sure.
So just go chat with her or play a game with her or watch TV with her, but just be around her so that she feels well supported. And I think it's just something that we were raised with. I don't think there was a conversation around it that, oh, this cannot, like, you can avoid this, because it's just a way of life in India.
Right. That's beautiful.
Even now, I mean, we're 13 of us who live in the same house, and we all have our own spaces, so we are not in each other's faces. But we celebrate all the big festivals together, and we love hanging out when we get the time. I think it's a very nice ecosystem where you just have that support, like you have someone to fall back on.
Yeah, I like the way that you call it an ecosystem because any other ecosystem, like in the garden, for example, we watch the garden and we watch the ecosystem between all the animals and the.
I'm a big gardener.
And
nice.
And so an ecosystem works in so much harmony, right? And everyone knows kind of their space and their role. So calling it an ecosystem, then it feels just very harmonious, and it feels like you said everyone has their space.
Right.
No one's kind of overprotecting or over managing, or it has to be my way. Everyone kind of is in flow in that life,
Right.
rather than other ways that it could show up.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
I think like I said, as the country is growing, this is getting more balanced, because now even parents understand that kids will not be, you can't dominate your child. So logically, if you can explain to them that this is how we want to live our life, that harmony is increasing. Earlier it used to be that the parents would tell the kid something and that was the way of life. But now it's an equal platform where the child and the parent living together have an equal voice. So I never feel stifled by my in-laws, because I feel like they value and respect my voice as well.
Right.
But at the same time, I respect them a lot, and I'm very grateful, for everything that they've created for us.
Yeah.
So.
And you did say, it was cute when we were talking, you said that, I said, oh, what did you do with your son while you were gone for so long? And you said, my husband's parents took care of him for the first week, and then my parents. And you said, and they're having so much fun because you're helicopter parents, you said.
Yes.
And so the grandparents are like free to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And
They're spoiling him.
They're spoiling him.
Your son's 2? Is that what you said? 2 years
Yes.
old.
So that's really cute.
Yeah, it's a cute age. They're also having a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's really fun.
So one of the other things that I'm curious about, you're, as we've been talking about, you're from this other culture, and in Western culture now, in the United States especially, which is what I know, there's been this attempt to start to integrate some of the things from Eastern cultures, moving a little bit more away from the Western rigid Christianity culture, Jewish culture, whatever, into the culture of some of the Eastern philosophies of meditation and balance,
Understanding your chakras,
all that kind of stuff. So tell us in your life, what is there in your life that you incorporate in that for yourself and your family? Is there something that has to do with that? I'd love to hear it. We would love to hear it.
I'm a very regular practitioner of yoga, and I feel like yoga, it's obviously about the body, but so much about the mind as well, right? So like when you're doing the asanas, when you're focusing, chakra balancing is something that happens very naturally through yoga. Like different yoga poses are kind of targeted towards balancing your chakras. So one of the things that I incorporate very strongly in my life is yoga. Meditation actually is something, it came from India and from the East, right, through the Buddhist culture, but I practice meditation on an app created in the US called Headspace.
Oh yeah,
so,
that's great.
I think it just went like a whole circle.
Yeah.
But I love that app. Like it really helps me. It feels relatable. I think in India they made meditation very religious, versus when they took it to the West.
More dogmatic.
Yeah. It was very much like focus on a god and that's how they kind of promoted, or like even a guru, like a religious guru.
Oh, right.
That's how
someone outside of you versus inside yourself.
Versus I think when they took it to the West, they made it very much internal and like focus on your breath, focus just on anything, like something that like a gratitude frequency or
but more about yourself and how you show up in the world.
Right. So for me personally, like I prefer meditation the way it's practiced in the West, but in India there are a lot of religious ceremonies that happen. So every day in the morning we wake up and we have a little small temple in our house, and just we put water on one of the gods, like we bathe him or we say a small mantra, and I think even those things are very therapeutic. Like it's just 2 minutes of a mantra where you're just focused on one single thing, which is the god in front of you, right? So I think those things were inbuilt in our culture. Unfortunately, as the country is growing and we're kind of losing it, but yeah, so that way, I think what else, Ayurveda I think is something that is being exported from India all over the world now, and I think Ayurveda is great. I'm a big believer. My brand does a lot of Ayurveda
mixing the right herbs and everything together,
and even like ways of life, right? Like there's this practice where you put water in your nostrils from one side and take it out from the other. It's called Jal Niti. It's the way we're living in the world today. It's so polluted and things like that. It's just great for internal cleansing. So these are small Ayurvedic practices.
Is that what you use it like a neti pot for?
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So when we've had colds, we've done that
absolutely.
to help cleanse that whole sinus area. That's interesting.
So these small practices I think are still very, very relevant, and they'll keep getting more relevant as the world gets more polluted and just more chaotic.
More chaotic.
More chaotic. And when because I think it's a very much a trend as well in the U.S. and with the Western world is for people to go inside themselves for answers versus on the outside. There's so much that's hard to know what's real versus what's perceived. What we used to perceive as truth all the time, told to us. It's now you kind of go inside and say, ooh, does that feel true to me? And filter it through your own lens of perception and your own sort of belief structure and what you want your life to be.
Absolutely.
So that, especially as it relates to your health and to your body, because all of our bodies are very different. So I love that you talk about the Ayurveda. How do you say that?
Ayurveda.
So because we've had others on, Melissa Watts was on recently and talked about how she had moved to Hawaii and had really started that practice with a lot of just cleansing and healing even, her emotional balancing and some of the things that she was working on with her thoughts and her history and trauma, that it was even very helpful for that.
There are a lot of healers in India, right? So me and my friend who I'm traveling with, Anumeha, we're very big into the whole healing situation. There's something called pranic healing, there's something called Reiki, there's a past life regression that they do now. And we love going and doing workshops around this.
Were you introduced to this stuff here in the West, or was this from India?
This was from India.
Scott and I have both
we're both Reiki masters.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it was something that we took up late in life about 5 years ago. We went through and both became Reiki masters.
Nice. And you think it's effective? Like, do you think it helps?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like you were talking about how you have temples or altars in your home, and you go in and you connect with a certain god or deity. It's like one of the things I've been talking about a lot lately within myself and to some other people is not making the thing the thing. Right. So the God isn't the thing that's doing the healing here. It's my experience within myself of that connection to turn it within myself. So one of the things that we say in the beginning of our podcast is learning to live your life from the inside out. Because most of the time we're living our lives from the outside in. Everything that's affecting me, all this stuff coming in, if I allow that to take me away, it will take me away.
That's so beautiful.
No way we can't avoid that. But when we come within ourselves, it comes to that centered place of balance. Here we are. We listen to what's being said, and there might be something in what's being said that doesn't feel right to me. In here, it doesn't feel right. So I can then take that within myself and just contemplate it for a period of time, or meditate on it, or just sit with it and see how that feels. Our emotions are that thing within us that it's the gift of being alive and human and having an experience that will help us to evaluate and know what that is. So I found it fascinating because you said you were taking on some of the things and you like the way Western culture was doing it because they're making it an inside experience.
Right.
And it's interesting that they've done that. I think it's out of necessity that the people in the West have done that because they've witnessed what it is to live with all this bombardment of everything from the outside. So there's a lot more people that are coming into a balanced way of seeing things that, hey, I'm sovereign. I can have this experience within myself and have a deeper understanding of what's going on. And it's hard. If you sit and listen to, the news and all the things happening, it will take you away in a hurry.
Absolutely.
You go down every rabbit hole that there is, and you'll be lost.
Absolutely. I mean, right now, I went on Headspace yesterday, and they have this whole section on post-election meditation and coping with post-election stress. And, I was just thinking about it, that, actually it's such a big deal because so many people...
Yeah, we feel so divided right now. It's really interesting. I know Scott has developed a really beautiful practice to be present, and he doesn't like to get too far ahead of him in the future or too stuck in anything in the past. And so he has a practice that he does every day. And I've said to him, I wish I could have that. And he's like, well, music helps me get there. And I've tried different things, but it wasn't until 2 years ago that I did the Vipassana. And so I did a 10-day silent retreat, Vipassana, and which comes from India. And the practitioner, they used a lot of recorded videos that was recorded, 30 years ago. But it was just that practice of breathing, right? And that breathing and scanning the body and having those hours of determination where you didn't move your body. And it was through that silence. And at first I was like, how am I ever going to do this? And a good entrepreneur friend, actually, the one that I was telling you about that has a popcorn company, Vanessa Dobson, she said, do not walk, run and do this 10-day meditation. And I put it off, and then finally it started to kind of call to me. And I went and did it, and it was really beautiful.
Amazing.
And I didn't think I could be silent that long, but then I realized it was less about the silence. The silence was the container. It was really more about the journey into myself and the breath work and breathing and just understanding myself and my body and my mind and everything at such a deeper level. It was really beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, one of my uncles who lives with us, he does this. He goes twice a year, and I've always it scares me.
That's the way
very intense, but it's amazing that you felt so much peace after doing it.
Yeah, it really was. It was. When it speaks to anyone, I tell them when it starts to speak to you, that's the time then to pay attention, and you should do it.
There's this place that we can all find of stillness within ourselves, and everyone finds it their own way. Right. And sometimes it's Vipassana. For me, it's music. If I sit down with my flute and start playing my flute, I can go to that place. Wow. Music has been that way for me at this point in my life, but that's what we like to encourage people to do is find out what that is for you, And it could be multiple things.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what
it can be the days you're at Ochi, right? And mixing flavors and a new packaging idea, all of that can really take you to be very present in that moment with what you're creating.
I'm still on my journey where I'm doing many different things to find out what is it that really calms me. But last year, so I'm also a very future planner. So I'm sitting here right now and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to eat tomorrow in Quito? And then like, what's next? Like I've already set up meetings for Monday because I'm getting back into the office, after very long. But this year, like after my son turned 1 and he started emoting and just communicating, that's when I decided that I want to be very, very present. So it's not easy. Like I think it's just like so many years of conditioning to be a certain way, right? But I'm very consciously now trying to be super present. Like if I'm here right now, and then like once I'm there on Monday morning, I'll figure it out. Like I'm trying to get that into practice. I'm not there yet, but hopefully I find a way.
Process.
Yeah,
it is a process.
But just to have an awareness about it is a beautiful first step.
Right. Yeah, this trip, like this holiday, I was telling my husband that I'm so happy because I probably worked like 2 hours on the whole like 17-day holiday, which is, I've never done it. When we travel to Europe, the first hour of our day is always work because the time also aligns.
Right.
But this holiday I was so happy because I was like, I'm here, I'm in the Galapagos. I would sit out there and just stare at the water for 40 minutes. Like I've done that the last 2 days because it's so beautiful to be here. It's not easy to get to South America from India, and then like the fact that I'm here is like I should absorb everything that this place has to offer.
Yeah. So true, and it's so natural. It's been such a beautiful reflection to be in the islands where there's no predators, and to ask myself like, wow, in my life, if I didn't have anything that I perceive to be a predator in my life, whether that's not really a safety predator, but like an emotional predator or a belief predator,
anything that brings up a fear.
A fear. And it's just been a beautiful mirror, right? To kind of say back to me, to say like, you can have a life without predators and be in this very blissful place where you create every moment and every day, and it's just beautiful. So
I think the first time when I stepped onto Bacha's beach, I texted my family saying that this concept of coexistence is so beautiful because every other place you go to, like just human beings have to be the predators, right? They need to feel that supremacy. But over here, it's all about the animals. Today, iguana told my friend, like, he was bobbing his head and he was like, get out.
This is my space.
This is my space. And you don't see that often, and it was just beautiful to see that, like that sort of coexistence.
The experience of being here in a place like this, it just can't be underestimated. It's been life-changing for me. I'm a nature guy, but this has just been, there's not really words to describe it. It's just very connecting and beautiful. Whether it's swimming and snorkeling or watching the blue-footed boobies on the cliffs tend to their young, and all of the things that the animals are there. It's like we're not even here.
Right.
They're just not even paying attention. They don't care.
Yeah.
They just continue doing what they're doing. And to be able to observe something like that in such an up-close way is transformational within.
It really is.
Yeah. Well,
it has been a delight to meet you while we've been on the show.
So glad we got chatting.
Yes, and we found some similarities, and I just can't wait now to share your brand with others and to have them become aware of who you are and what you're doing. It makes the world feel so much smaller and so much more collaborative.
It's like you always say, we're so much more similar than we are different.
We are so much more similar than we are different.
No matter where we are, the languages might differ, the cultures might be different, but the humanity that we are is the same. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for this. It was such a beautiful reflection even on this holiday.
Yeah, and we're sitting here in the captain's quarters.
Yeah,
so
we can take off if we want. Where should we go?
Exactly.
All right, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Pallavi.
Thank you.